Hello Scavengers! I'm Tony Cooper and welcome to Dev Diary number 5 for Time Scavengers. Over the last couple of months I've been ill twice and made no visible progress on the project, so this update is going to be great. Okay, I am exaggerating a little, there's plenty to show off, just nothing especially amazing as I've been doing a lot of tidy up work. Thing is, when you're prototyping something, whether it's a piece of software or an actual physical object, you don't much care how it looks, it's all about the function. Does this work? Does that do the right thing when this other bit does this thing, and so on. And that's been the case on Time Scavengers. I had a list of stuff I had to get done to prove the game would actually work, and once it was done, I didn't care how janky it looked, or about any of what are called edge cases, that is, any really specific setups or scenarios where the thing didn't quite work as intended. I didn't care. It was a case of, that will do for now, I'll sort it later. And later arrived. Now, I have done some little animation tests in the past, like the ship docking video and some volumetric lighting work which I showed off in a previous dev diary, but it's mostly been behind the scenes scripting work, most of which either doesn't show up in a video or you only really notice any difference when you're actually playing. But in between being ill for several weeks, I worked on a long list of stuff to get it feeling and looking better. So, time for a quick listicle. In-world Raycast user interface. When it comes to the various computer screens that the player will interact with in the game, I didn't want to go the usual route of either switching to a fixed position camera looking at the screen or having a pop-up UI of it either. Since an overall goal of mine in Time Scavengers is to have as much of the world appear in camera as possible, hence the full body awareness where you can see your actual arms and legs in game, I wanted the player to be able to interact with screens just by looking at them. Now, you'd think game engines would have all these basic types of interactions set up by default and you just pick the one you wanted and away you go. But no, this involved a lot of learning and setup using what's called a raycast, which is an invisible line fired from a position you specify in a direction you specify, which you can then check to see if it hits anything interesting along its path. For this in-world UI, the raycast comes from the head camera position, and each button on the screen has a collider that I can set to highlight and become interactive whenever it's hit. I also added a small reticle which appears whenever you are within interaction range of the screen and your view passes over it, just as an additional guide to see where you're looking. Stop running. Kayla's ship is deliberately compact and quite a tight space, but it meant I had a lot of issues with the character controller moving around inside, so I investigated GameKit controller, the Unity asset I'm basing a lot of the game functionality on, and with some help from the creator found a trigger that allows me to control when the player can run, so now you can't run inside the ship. I mean, that's a pretty dangerous thing to do anyway with all those cables and sharp metal edges all over the place. Why would you do that? Anyway, I also did several tweaks to things like character speed and other controller variables to make the walking movement feel a bit better. It still needs some work, but it's a big improvement. Ship gravity. This was another big chunk of work I finally got done. Now, when you are running around the ship and it's perfectly aligned to the world coordinates, everything was lovely and fine. But as soon as the ship started moving or was stopped at an odd angle, then we had some issues. Like I said at the start, it worked good enough for a while, but this was something I needed to properly find a solution for. In the end, I made a custom floor collider which was set as a moving platform, which meant the player would stick to it, whatever the ship movement or alignment. And with some help I sorted a weird wobbly issue with the mover, which was a problem with my original setup. Airlock Tunnel. This was the biggest headache of all, which also related to the ship alignment, but also involved some camera switching and toggling player control on and off, which had to happen at exactly the right time, or so I discovered. The player can trigger the whole procedure, put on their suit, decompress the airlock, disable gravity, and then, ultimately, use the airlock tunnel to exit the ship. And, of course, the reverse, to get back inside. Now, the initial version I set up worked fine when the ship was completely level, but as soon as... yeah, you get the idea. This took over a week of evenings to figure out and fix. I got help again from the creator of GameKit controller for some elements and some code which extended the functionality of the asset to help do what I needed, and after a lot of experimentation with the exact order and timing of events, I got an airlock tunnel that doesn't care how the ship is rotated, whether inside or outside, the player always aligns to the ship, moves into position and then uses the tunnel as they should. There's still a little bug in there with the full body awareness camera where it rotates back to where it was looking before you entered or exited the tunnel, but that should be fixed within the next update of the asset. All of the other stuff. All of the rest of the work has been tidy up and quality of life improvements, such as getting the cargo hold elevator to come up to your level when you open the rear airlock door and it's not already in place, fixed some weird player collider scaling nonsense. Some limb colliders were massively scaled and in the wrong place, don't know how that happened, as well as general speed and movement tweaks to the player controller. Sorted an issue where the player's head and hair were clipping with the camera when wearing the helmet. Fixed the helmet HUD so you can no longer see players' hands and objects inside it when you get too close to things, and many more little tweaks. To be do. Yeah, there's still lots of stuff to work on. Quick list, ongoing work writing the script, finalise the player progression through the game, swapping out the cutter for a different model. Currently it's a two-handed laser rifle, but I want it to be a one-handed Cindy space gun asset. Need to design the rec choice and drop off point screens for the cockpit, which is easy to do now that I've got the Raycast UI working. And I want to start blocking out the first rec, which is a communications array that you're stealing some solar panels from. Anyway, that's your lot for this month. Thanks for watching as always. Links to all my social channels are in the description, and if you like the look of the game you can either follow me on there or the itch.io page where you'll find more frequent text-based devlog updates. Bye for now.